and welcome to this Beyondistic special report with Jim Willie. It's entitled Jim Willie Uncensored. You can find his work at golden-jackass.com. Let's give him a big warm welcome. Yo.
A little bit wet. I caught the rain. I'm doing okay. And, life moves on. We're in historic times now. We're way past unusual time. We're in historic times.
Absolutely. You and I recorded this amazing episode. We can go back to the way things used to be, and that was quite an amazing episode. We'll get into that in a few minutes. Maybe some of the highlights of what's happening here in your latest monthly report, and also look at the fog of war. We're seeing some saber rattling now in the Middle East, and I wanted to get your thoughts on how all of this might be connecting the dots here as we move forward in time. So, Jim, in this last episode we just recorded, you talked about this new insider, a relatively new insider here in your stable horse team, and his name is Dr. Phoenix. Let's give the audience here a breakdown of his areas of expertise to kind of give them an inch or an inkling of what's coming up here in our reports and how explosive they really are.
Okay, it's a confirming source, but it's also a source of some new info that I've not typically been aware of. He was a high-ranking U.S. Army Medical Corps officer, and he got into a lot of trouble during the Kuwait War. If you remember the inoculation of thousands and thousands of Army members, Army soldiers, because they were about to move in on the oil wells where Saddam Hussein had dumped a lot of chemical weapons and various horrible substances, whether they were toxic, biological, or toxic, metallic, poison. The Army had a big conflict internally, and it was over whether to inoculate soldiers because they were basically poisoning them. And what followed was pretty much what Dr. Phoenix, I'm calling him Dr. Phoenix. I want to protect the identity. He warned the Army, you're going to make thousands of soldiers very sick. And then arrived what later was called the Gulf War Syndrome. It was from, multi-symptomatic disorder. Nervous disorder, chronic symptoms, muscle pain, respiratory problems. They poisoned thousands of soldiers. Okay, does that sound similar today, except not to the military? Okay, anyway, it ruined his career. He made enemies among high-ranking Army ranking generals, etc., and he had to retire. And so I'm getting a lot of information, and it has to do with Washington having been cordoned off. In my opinion, Washington was under arrest. What was going on in Washington? Well, it had to do with what was going on underneath Washington. And they completed their mission. And let's just say hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of buses were filled up with
small people
who were in tough shape. So I believe Washington was under arrest for 3 months, 100 days. And now we're going to see some aftermath, and it's very unclear exactly what we're going to see in the aftermath. But we saved some of that for our pay-per-view because it's, let's just say it's hot information. And I've gotten some information just in the last few days. There's some dangerous, how shall I say, dangerous devices located in the west cities, California and probably north of California. And Team Trump has to clean that up because it could threaten millions of people, especially with the winds blowing east. Okay, so there are a lot of reasons why Trump has not returned yet, even though I believe, hey, call me crazy, I believe he was sworn in as president and the Biden event was just a bunch of shit. Biden show. A lot of people calling it the Biden show. Mm-hmm. Can you remember? I just can't seem to remember the name of the show. It was Jim Carrey.
Oh, the Truman Show.
Truman Show, yes, the Truman Show. So we're watching the Truman Show as it applies to Biden, and it's really quite pathetic. The part that confuses me is the executive orders which are being carried out. I haven't heard much about the Supreme Court with 4 new members. So, I believe there are 3 factors that are hindering the quick return of the Orange Man.
Okay.
And one is removing and cleaning out, detecting, identifying, neutralizing the devices in the western part of the United States that have, let's just say, Chinese letters on them. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's one, because we don't want mass casualties from carried by the winds.
Right.
Okay, the second thing is we need to minimize the harm done to little people who've been abducted by nasty people. And Trump is trying to minimize that. And the third thing that I'm hearing, and this is directly from Dr. Phoenix, he maintains several good contacts. We actually talked a little while ago for the first time, and it's old contacts, it's new contacts, and I think, well, this is really good. This is really good because you confirm a lot of things that my other fellow, I call him Captain Bernard, who's a Navy guy. He has lots of connections, and when I spilled over to Dr. Bernard what I learned from Dr. Phoenix, Captain Bernard from Dr. Phoenix, he said, yeah, got that, oh, that's new, got that, oh, that's new. I tell you, we've got an 80% confirmation of things, and it's very exciting. But the third thing that is hindering the return, the fast return, let's just say the fast return of the Orange Man, is they're trying to take off the streets and put, can I just say behind bars? I mean, I don't know.
Sure. Put behind bars.
Apprehend, there you go.
Apprehend, yeah.
They're trying to do mass apprehensions. And it is not, huh?
You mentioned also in our pre-record show, not just the apprehensions, but the seizures of assets as well. Maybe we can touch that briefly here.
Yeah, Walmart, let's just watch that.
Right.
Walmart got implicated in the Suez Evergreen incident. So that's very rich. And Dr. Phoenix said that the process of seizures has already begun with respect to WMT. I got an itch, sorry. Okay, I don't know if we can talk much, but the apprehensions are leading to judgments being made at a location south of Florida and shipping these scumbags up to the Great White North. I don't mean Canada. I mean the Great White North. By the tens of thousands. Okay, so when people say, golly, Jim, when are we gonna see mass arrests? I say, they're already happening. You expect to see it on the news?
Right.
when some of the executives might be from the news networks who are taken away? You think they're going to report it on the MSN News? No, we have to get it from other measures. And I think it's going to spill over pretty soon. It might be from guys like MonkeyWorks, might be from Gene Decode, might be from any number of different intrepid types. Michael Jaco. These guys do intrepid work. For me, it's a little hard to watch it over and over and over and over again because some of it is new information and some of it is not. When I watch Michael Jaco, I'm amazed at the level of information that he has, but I'm also amazed at the size of his neck.
The big guy.
He's a big guy, and I'm just glad that he doesn't stand up because it might make an impression that removes the ability to listen to what he has to say. The guy's connected. I'm not really sure about those guys with the British accent, okay? Let's just leave it there.
Sure. And just for the audience here, Michael Jaco just launched his YouTube channel here a couple of weeks ago. And this is why, of course, Jim and I here are being very, very careful with our language here today and why we're testing out this new platform for you to bring you this uncensored content here. So, yeah, smash likes. Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate that. So Michael will be on the show here on May 10th at 2 p.m. So if you guys want to schedule that in and come check us out, that will be our inaugural show. And I might be going on his show afterwards here as soon as he starts to rebuild his own platform. So that is the state of affairs here on this platform.
Things get shut down. Things get shut down, Jean-Claude.
Yeah.
When tens of billions of dollars go into certain pockets in Silicon Valley and policies change. Tens of billions. I'm very curious when we're going to see the Orange Man do his return, because it's going to be both. It's going to be a lot of things. It's going to be fun, it's going to be shocking, and it's going to be exciting. I got, again, confirmation from Dr. Phoenix that only about 20% of the criminal, nefarious, horrendous behavior will be revealed. 20%. Because the American public couldn't handle it. They're going to have trouble handling 20%. I think they'll have trouble handling 10%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed something, just to confirm that things are happening. When I watched the Academy Awards, respect in this world in order to see what's happening. At the Academy Awards, there were very few faces that were recognized. I remember panning. I saw maybe 30, 40, 50 faces. Didn't recognize anybody there. I know a lot of faces. I know Meryl Streep, Kevin,
Yeah, it's like, who are these people on TV? Like, where
it's the next generation of Hollywood. The ones that did not dabble. How should I say? Dabble with,
the party drug.
The party drug, yeah, that's been going around and sits in jars on the shelf that Mel Gibson calls the new currency. Yeah. Okay. I asked other clients, did you see any producers? Did you see Spielberg? Like 20 people. I talked about 3 different clients. And no, didn't see anybody. Didn't see Tom Hanks. Didn't see Meryl Streep. No Kevin Spacey. No Brad Pitt. No Angelina Jolie. Didn't see either. They stayed home. And why would they do that? So that they wouldn't be seen? why would they not want to be seen? Okay, let me tell you something about the Oscars. They want to be seen. They want to be seen by their peers, and they want to be seen as the best of the best. Okay, I don't know whose bald head that is. That's Warren Beatty. Oh, no, the guy on the left there of Warren Beatty. Warren's right. Yeah, that guy. Is that Tucci? No. That's Jimmy Kimmel. Okay, yeah. Jimmy Kimmel, apparently he's kind of dirty, but, let's just not worry about it. There are a lot that weren't seen and haven't been seen. Okay, let me confirm this perception. I'm a movie buff, and ever since about last February, I've been looking to see what movies at the theater nearby. On a regular basis, they have about 8 movies playing, and some of them are, Fast and Furious and 3 screens. You know what I mean. But they have about 8 different movies shown, and maybe 5 unique ones. And I noticed that back in February, March, they shut down because of the COVID nonsense. I call it nonsense because there's no more flu. There's no more influenza. I've got graphs from the WHO, straight from the WHO. There was no flu last year. Straight from the WHO, okay?
Be careful on your trigger words there, but we have this, of course, in the PPV episode. We go into details, and I share with the audience the graph.
I don't want to contradict the WHO. I'm only confirming what those sons of bitches. Okay, then I noticed when they opened up again briefly in April and May, there were no big name stars in the movies.
Right.
Then they shut down again. It was brutal. They shut down 2 weeks in July for no reason at all, except they wanted to scare the shit out of people. And then they opened up again in maybe about August and September, and I noticed that there were previews of certain movies and they did not arrive. Then I noticed that there were a number of different movies and they were almost all animated, like cartoons. Then I noticed that there were a bunch of terror movies. So either the only movies that are new out there are from the no-name terror movies, or else there aren't any big-name actors in new movies. I'm still waiting for Fast and Furious 9, which has a placard out there, and I'm wondering if the placard was made a long time ago before some of these guys disappeared. Okay, so don't see any producers, don't see any new big-name movies, didn't see any people at the Academy Awards where they want to be seen. Mm-hmm. It's like going to an all-star game. Well, the best players like, Hank Aaron and Willie Mays, they didn't want to show up. No, they're going to be there. Okay. All right, so anyway, that was another impression.
Do you think, let me ask you quickly, between these Hollywood types, do you also think they're going to the same locations down south on that little annex to Cuba, or are they also going way up north here to the
They go first south and then north. Around the clock panels of 3 guys in uniform. Around the clock.
And is it possible, I'm wondering if Captain Bernard or Dr. Phoenix have talked about the possibility of having these centers, to call them that, off-world, maybe potentially on the moon.
I don't know. I don't hear anything about that. But there's a green place up north, and it is very, very occupied.
Yeah.
We should take comfort in the fact that there are a lot of very dangerous and evil people who are being removed from the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I use my critical mass argument. Let me mention something very safe for my critical mass argument that I used to use about 5, 6 years ago. I did this month just finished, and 2 anniversaries took place, John Claude. It was my 17th anniversary of the newsletter and my 34th anniversary of going to drug rehab. 34 years!
Wow,
No doobies! Hey, pass the bong, buddy! No more of that! No more little roach clip while driving! Yeah. None of that. Now, 34 years since rehab at Spofford Hall in New Hampshire. Thank you very much, John Hancock Insurance, for paying the $10,000 bill. You didn't pay a nickel. In fact, I got a $100 check that I didn't know why. So I didn't pay the 100. So it wasn't a reimbursement of the 100. So anyway, I'm what they call clean and sober, but maybe I'm still a little bit inebriated from life and some of life's pleasures, like, getting on a 2-wheeled vehicle or riding a 2-legged vehicle.
Hey, there's a question on the screen. Let me bring it up, and we'll call the gentleman Mr. B for now. Any news on Mr. B being removed from Congress? Apparently news overnight. Now, of course, he was just at the joint session here for his address a couple of days ago after his first 100 days in office, and that was weird in and of itself. But
okay, I think we're going to get started here. Let me, if anybody wants to watch this video, this is on Beyond Mystic on YouTube. It's a very interesting video with Jim Willie. Jim Willie's a pretty interesting guy. He's got lots of contacts that, give him information that you won't find in the mainstream media for sure. So I would recommend anybody to watch the video, but that's up to you. That's the reason I play these videos at the beginning, to wait until we get a few people on the stream, get things going, and then start going into the material that we want to cover today. And we're going to talk about Article 3 courts. This is everything we've been invaded by the communists, basically. The bar is basically in complete control right now. But they know the law, and it's hard to say whether it's going to come to actual kinetic warfare between we the people and the communists. I have no idea if that'll happen, but I read a statistic recently that there's more guns in the hands of the American people than there is in all the rest of the armies on the planet. So I think that if they did try and invade, they'd have a problem. Anyways, I'm going to check periodically the live stream and see if there's any questions that anybody has. I've been trying to answer them as needed. So if you have any questions, put them on the live stream, and I'll check periodically and answer any questions. So I want any input you might have. This one is about no Article 3 courts. All these judges are not judges. Of course, they can act as a judge, but they're bar members. And it's all Satanism. They lie and they cheat, so they're not interested in being a judge. They're interested in selling people into slavery and making money for themselves, and they're engaged in treason and sedition, and don't get me going. So need to be aware of that. You'll never see any justice at the hands of these so-called courts. Some people sometimes get something similar to it, but they're the lucky few, and it's only because these judges, these bar member scum, have some political agenda that they're trying to promote. And we need to take back our government is what we need to do. And this bar is one of the big ways. The bar, the money, those are the two biggest ways that I can see that are causing our problems. All of our problems, and we're going to be talking about this next week, is bar grievances. All of our problems can be tied to a bar member. And there's no separation of powers. If you go to the Supreme Court rules, Rule 45 says all mandates or all proceedings, all I talk about it in this video. It's not mandates. There's another word they use. All process of the Supreme Court is under authority of the President of the United States. And so there's no separation of powers. They want you to think there is, but there is none. And so your real remedy is to go after these bar members. That's really what you need to do. I think that there's a good chance that the day will come when you'll see bar members hanging from light poles all over the place. Anyways, I guess we'll see. It's all Satanism. The Masons are, if you read Morals and Dogma by the Confederate General, what's his name? Albert Pike. He was also a Grand Mason of the Freemasons, and he says in there that they worship Satan. It's all Satan worship. They don't want to let you know up front. They kind of just lead you along. And so, anyways, let's get going. First of all, I'm not a liar. Well, I meant a lawyer. No, I meant a liar. You should never take my word for anything. You should always do your own research. I provided references to aid you in your research, but I don't know everything. I'm open to any ideas. It really is the illusion. It's the matrix out there. There's 4 types of people you will meet in your life. There's the people who try to wake up the slaves. There's the slave masters. There's the people who have no idea they're slaves. And there's the people who like being slaves. Which one are you? Do you really know for sure? Are you who you think you are? If you cannot see through the illusion, then you are the solution. If the people don't know their basic rights and freedoms, how can they know when or if their rights and freedoms are being infringed? Never forget the men who started this country were marijuana-growing, whiskey-drinking, tax-evading rebels who left their beds at night to shoot at the pigs. And that's true. George Washington was a hemp farmer. All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. Government is not reason, it is not eloquence, it is force. Like fire, it is a dangerous servant and a fearful master. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow me on Steemit. Don't forget to like this video. On YouTube, don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload. And on Steemit, don't forget to vote and make your comments. This is the front page of my YouTube channel. The subscribe button's already been clicked. The bell, the arrow's pointing at the bell. The bell needs to be clicked. It'll look like it's vibrating after it's clicked. So under General Orders 100, which is the Libra Code, Article 13, it says military jurisdictions of 2 kinds. First, that which is conferred and defined by statute. So all statutes are defining military jurisdiction. Think about it. All statutes define military jurisdiction. Second, that which is derived from the common law of war. all statutes define military jurisdiction. All statutes are in support of the martial law. All statutes apply to subjects only. There's two kinds of court proceedings, court-martial and military commissions, and only Article 3 courts are set up by we the people. So if you read this further, it says military offenses under the statute law must be tried in the manner therein directed, but military offenses which do not come within the statute must be tried and punished under the common law of war. The character of the courts which exercise these jurisdictions depends on the local laws of each particular country. In the armies of the United States, the first is exercised by court-martial. So statute, if you're in one of their statutory courts, it's a court-martial. While cases which do not come within the rules and articles of war or jurisdiction conferred by statute or court-martial are tried by military commissions. So if you're not, so then the common law of war is military commissions. So if you're in one of their statutory courts, it's a court-martial. All Article 3 courts are set up by we the people. The Constitution only sets up one court that's an Article 3 court, and that is the Supreme Court. And actually, under the DC Code, there's a Supreme Court of the District of Columbia, and I think because they're all bar members, then it's a court-martial is what it is, and it's District of Columbia. All courts are martial law. All statutory courts are military courts. The bar grievances are going to be next weekend. We're going to go through, and I'm going to show some, we'll talk about some examples of what I did. And I've got a bunch of them that I have linked. They're below the videos. There's some of them that have links below the videos. So you can go and look at them there, download them off of Google Docs. So this is Williams versus United States. This is where a controversy is of such a character as to require the exercise of the judicial power defined by Article 3. Jurisdiction thereof can be conferred only on courts established in virtue of that article. And Congress is without power to vest that judicial power in any other judicial tribunal, or of course in an executive officer, administrative, or executive board, since they are incapable of receiving it. So Congress is without power. So think about it. That was in 1933. In 1861, the Southern states walked out of Congress, and Congress ceased to have a quorum, and they couldn't conduct business. Lincoln ordered them back under executive authority. So they're not a legitimate Congress. They're not the de jure Congress. In 1871, they set up an unconstitutional corporation called United States of America. And that's the one that's operating now. It's the unconstitutional corporation. That's the Congress. And in 1933, that corporation went bankrupt. And it was seized by its creditors. That's why Pelosi gets up there and says, we can't read this bill until after we pass it. And so that's why that's happening, because she's taken orders from the owners. And the owners, if you look at the speaker's podium in the U.S. House of Representatives, you'll see who the owners are. There's two Roman fasci on each side of the speaker's podium. I'm not sure if I'm going to have that in this video or not, but there's two Roman fasci. I've had it in other videos recently. There's two Roman fasci on each side of the speaker's podium, and there's a Roman spear that's planted on all conquered nations on the right side of the speaker's podium. And so the Roman cult owns it. And so it was seized by the Roman cult. Now, current events. Now, let's go to current events. The Trump wrote an executive order in 2018 about foreign interference in our elections and about seizing their property, and which was brilliant. And they found evidence that those Dominion servers were transmitting their data overseas. They were transmitting their data overseas through an Italian satellite that was leased to the Roman cult. Well, that sounds like a home run, and that came out last November, December timeframe. And the Vatican, or the Italian government, collapsed because of it. They had to, I don't know if they had an election or if they just had to, the government is basically elected by the legislature, or, they have the legislature elects a prime minister is what they do. And also the under the legislature style government that they have over in Europe, that's the same in Canada. The legislature, if the prime minister, they have a vote of non-confidence in the prime minister, then the prime minister, they actually have to call an election. Now, I don't know if there's been an election or not in Italy, but I know that the government collapsed, and so then what they have to do is they have to appoint a new prime minister, and it'll be a different one, obviously, and then he'll have to appoint new ministers. And anyways, there was an Italian defense contractor that heads rolled in this defense contractor that was mixed up in it. And I've heard that the U.S. was over in the Vatican seizing things, seizing property. I heard they came back with, like, they filled up Fort Knox and they filled up a couple other military bases full of gold, and that they seized from the Roman cult. And that's why the military troops are, and Jim Willey talked about that actually. They put military troops. That's why the military troops are in D.C. That's why, because D.C.'s under a military occupation. If you listen to the rest of that video, they'll talk about how there was someone that went to D.C. like within the last week, and they were filming that John Claude Beyond Mystic interviewed, and that the grass around the White House is all overgrown. Nobody's mowing the grass, and they were just amazed at it because it's usually manicured, and that means the White House is empty too. And I've even heard that there's a new capital. They picked a new capital that's going to be in Missouri. Trump is restoring the republic. I talk about that in my book. Anyways, we'll go into that later. So Congress is without power to vest any Article 3 jurisdiction in any other court. That's what they're saying here. Congress is without power to vest Article 3 jurisdiction to any other judicial tribunal or executive officer or administrative or executive board, since they are incapable of receiving it. And so that's Williams versus United States. I think it was Scalia that wrote this decision. Anyways, that same decision goes on. It says it's noted as significant that the act constituting the court dispenses with trial by jury, a provision which is distinctly upheld in spite of the Seventh Amendment, and a duty to give decisions which are advisory only, and so without the force of judicial judgments, may be laid on a legislative court, but not on a constitutional court established under Article 3. And so they're incapable of establishing Article 3 courts or says here, where controversies of such a character as to require the exercise of judicial power defined in Article 3, it can be only conferred on courts established in virtue of Article 3. And they cannot confer anything other than Article 3 power on an Article 3 court, and they cannot confer any other power on any other court. So they're talking, in this case, I think it's about the Court of Claims. So it's advisory decisions only. And then United States versus Williams. Is that United States versus? That's Williams versus 289 U.S. 553. It's a different case. United States versus Williams. This is the one that Scalia ruled on. Because the grand jury is an institution separate from the courts over whose functioning the courts do not preside, we think it clear that as a general matter, at least no supervisory judicial authority exists over the grand jury. They're talking about the grand jury here. That's we the people. Rooted in long centuries of Anglo-American history, the grand jury is mentioned in the Bill of Rights, but not in the body of the Constitution. It has not been textually assigned, therefore, to any of the branches described in the first 3 articles. It is a constitutional fixture in its own right. You have no idea the power of we the people, but we're not exercising it. We've abdicated our authority. We need to wake up and start taking care of business. Same case. In fact, the whole theory of its function is that it belongs to no branch of institutional government, serving as a kind of buffer or referee between the government and the people. Recognizing this tradition of independence, we've said that the Fifth Amendment's constitutional guarantee presupposes an investigative body acting independently of either a prosecuting attorney or judge. There's a movie called Runaway Jury. It was done back in the 90s, I think, 90s or 2000s. It's called Runaway Jury. It's about a grand jury that did what they're supposed to do. And that's what a grand jury is supposed to do, is they're supposed to investigate crimes. And these prosecutors, they try and control what the grand jury gets. They try and control what the grand jury does. But at the end of the day, the grand jury doesn't have to listen to anybody. That's why it was a runaway jury, and they were doing what they're supposed to do. They haven't had a grand jury in Canada in 30 years. And the people of Canada need to get off their backside and start taking care of business. Actually, if there's a magistrate in a kangaroo court, I would be filing bar grievances and judicial complaints. They know the law, okay? And generally speaking, they follow the law. And because it goes to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court regulates the bars in every state in the Union. And there's, at least in Texas, there's a state commission on judicial conduct that you can file judicial complaints with. So anyways, let's keep moving here. Legislative courts are not judicial. Legislative courts are not Article 3 courts. Legislative courts give advisory decisions only that do not have the force of law. Executive, administrative, executive boards, legislative courts are incapable of receiving authority to be an Article 3 court. Only an Article 3 court has the force of law. and there are no Article 3 courts. And the reason is that they're all bar members. Judge works for the state, prosecutor works for the state, police or witness works for the state. The vast majority of disputes that the police initiate on behalf of their employer are also adjudicated by their employer, where the plaintiff, the judge, the antagonist, the pigs, and the only witness, also the pigs, all represent the same party. And since no corpus delicti, mens rea, or acts reus can be produced, doesn't technically qualify to be heard according to its own laws. The state, therefore, is indistinguishable from a criminal cartel. Oh, look, a kangaroo court. There's a kangaroo court, folks. It's a kangaroo court. We can't even begin to count the number of times judges, lawyers, and statesmen have said there isn't any common law anymore. It's been replaced by statutes. They would be more truthful if they said there isn't any common law anymore. It's been replaced by martial law. And that's found in the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge H. Ella to the Utah Supreme Court in the case Diet versus Turner. That case, that book, is only 150 pages and is double spaced. So it's really a quick, easy read. I would highly recommend it. It's available on my website. It's got all sorts of little jewels of knowledge in there. Martial law supersedes and replaces common law. This is taken from the Causes and Necessities for Taking Up Arms, 1775. Statutes have been passed extending the courts of admiralty and vice admiralty far beyond their ancient limits, for depriving us of the accustomed and estimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law, instead thereof to publish and order the use and exercise of the law martial, and for altering fundamentally the form of government established by charter. We saw the misery to which such despotism would reduce us. That's a dictatorship, folks. It's exactly what it is. And we're under it now. There is no common law offenses against the United States, only those acts which Congress has forbidden with penalties for disobedience of its command or crimes. They're telling you, there's no common law here. It's a military dictatorship. Under Texas law, no act or omission is a crime unless made so by statute. Military dictatorship. The legislature may create an offense and in the same enactment provide exceptions to its application. Military dictatorship. Arizona, all common law offenses and affirmative defenses are abolished. No conduct or omission constitutes an offense or an affirmative defense unless an offense or an affirmative defense under this title or under another statute or ordinance. It's a military dictatorship. NSA takes care of the spying, the CIA takes care of the drug trade, FBI takes care of the terror attacks and false flags, Homeland Security takes care of the rest. That's what they're all there for. CIA owns everyone of any significance in the major media. Why do you think the major media is lying so much? We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. Why do you think the news media lies so much? Deception is the state of mind and the mind of the state. Why do you think the news media is lying so much? The CIA owns everyone of any significance in the major media. Why do you think they're lying so much? The Labor Code. Instructions for the government of the armies of the United States in the field, prepared by Francis Lieber as General Orders number 100 by President Lincoln, 24th of April, 1863. It's originally, U.S. Government Printing Office, Washington. Instructions, it says it twice. Article 1 says, martial law is the immediate and direct effect and consequence of occupation or conquest. The presence of a hostile army proclaims it martial law. A place, district, or country occupied by an enemy stands in consequence of the occupation under the martial law of the invading or occupying army. Well, we all know there was a civil war. We all know that there's a war with Mexico in the 1840s. We all know that in the colonial days, there was a royal proclamation of 1763 that said that everything west of the colonial boundaries at that time was Indian territory, and you had to have a passport to go there. Gee, that sounds like martial law. Martial law does not cease during a hostile occupation except by special proclamation ordered by the commander-in-chief or by special mention in the Treaty of Peace concluding the war. That's Article 2 of the Labor Code. Have you seen any special proclamations by the commander-in-chief ending the martial law? I haven't. Has there been any special mention in a Treaty of Peace? There have been some Treaty of Peace. There's the Definitive Treaty of Peace of 1783. It doesn't say anything about ending the martial law. There's the Treaty of Hidalgo. It doesn't say anything about ending martial law. I haven't seen a treaty yet that said anything about ending the martial law. Martial law in a hostile country consists in the suspension by the occupying military authority of the civil and criminal and civil law and of the domestic administration and government in the occupied place of territory, and in the substitution of military rule and force for the same, as well as in the dictation of the general laws. That's dictatorship, folks. That's what dictation is. Dictatorship. As far as military necessity requires the suspension, substitution, or dictation. They don't want you to know what's going on, so the commander of the forces may proclaim that the administration of all civil and penal law shall continually, either wholly or in part, as in times of peace, unless otherwise ordered. Of course, they want to maintain the illusion. It's the Matrix, folks. It's part of the illusion. This is that non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge A.H. Ella to the Utah Supreme Court again. Wonderful document. Highly recommend it. Note, under the law martial, only the criminal jurisdiction of a military court is the recognized law, but as Article 3 says, the civil courts can continue wholly or in part as long as the civil jurisdiction does not violate the military orders laid down by the commander-in-chief or one of his commanders. By this means, a military venue jurisdiction and authority are imposed upon the occupied populace under the disguise of the ordinary civil courts and officers of the occupied district or region. Because of the so-called civil authorities in an occupied district or region only act at the pleasure of a military authority. It should also be noted here that the several state legislatures, county boards of commissioners, and city councils are constantly legislating to please the edicts of the federal government, the occupying force, and that their legislation in this sense is not an exercise of state sovereignty, but instead is a compliance with the edicts of the military force which occupies the several states and consequently are edicts of martial law rule. Well, edict, gee, that kind of sounds like it's a kind of a root word of dictation, right? Edict and dictation. Edict and dictation, or dictatorship. A statute is an edict under martial law. A regulation is an edict under martial law. A code is an edict under martial law. Rules are edicts under martial law. Even a constitution. All the constitutions nowadays are edicts under martial law. 14th Amendment. Everything subsequent to the 12th Amendment really is edicts under martial law. Article 44 of the Labor Code. all wanton violence committed against persons in the invaded country, all destruction of property not commanded by the authorized officer, all robbery, all pillage and sacking, even after taking place by main force, all rape, wounding, maiming, or killing of such inhabitants are prohibited under the penalty of death or other such severe punishment as may seem adequate for the gravity of the offense. A soldier, officer, or private in the act of committing such violence and disobeying a superior ordering him to abstain from it may be lawfully killed on the spot by such superior. So they can go ahead and do it until they get told not to do it anymore. That's good faith doctrine. That's what these pigs do. This is Texas Code of Criminal Procedure, an edict under martial law. Paragraph A, Article 38.23. Paragraph A sounds so nice, doesn't it? It says, no evidence obtained by an officer or other person in violation of any provision of the constitutional laws of the state of Texas or the constitutional laws of the United States of America shall be admitted in evidence against the accused on the trial of any criminal case. Paragraph B. It is an exception to the provisions of subsection A of this article that the evidence was obtained by a pig acting in objective good faith reliance upon a warrant issued by a neutral magistrate based on probable cause. That's good faith. It's in the federal codes too. That's right here. A good faith reliance upon a court warrant or order, a grand jury subpoena, a legislative authorization, or a statutory authorization, including a request of a governmental entity under Section 2703F of this title, a request of an investigative or law enforcement officer under Section 2518.7 of this title, or a good faith determination that Section 2511.3 of this title permitted the conduct complained of, is a complete defense to any civil or criminal action brought under this chapter or any other law. That's 18 U.S.C. Section 2707. They want their pigs to be able to get away with it. Copies of these documents can be found linked below my YouTube videos or on my website. For a complete set of YouTube videos with over 50 private information shares, For a complete set of YouTube videos with private information shares, a DVD with over 50 searchable law dictionaries, and other books and forums, contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the military script, the fake money, the IOUs, the Federal Reserve notes, the PayPal gifts, the checks, the money orders. Send me an email for particulars. All of their statutes are martial law. All statutes are martial law. All statutes, codes, rules, regulations, and constitutions are edicts under martial law. Every constitutional amendment after 1861 is an edict under martial law. Military necessity is martial law. All Civil War states are under a military occupation. Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas, Missouri, Tennessee, and Kentucky. All the states in the territory conquered in the War of Mexico are under military occupation. Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Nevada. Dictation is dictatorship, military dictatorship. Law enforcement is enforcing the martial law. It's a military dictatorship, folks. It's the time we woke up to it. When the southern states walked out of Congress in 1861, they ceased to have a quorum. Under executive authority, the martial law, Lincoln ordered Congress to reconvene. When the Supreme Court ruled against something Lincoln did, I think it was Ex parte Milligan, that when Lincoln sent the troops to the Supreme Court, and Rule 45, all process of this court issues in the name of the President of the United States. There's no separation of powers. They want you to think there is, but there isn't. All state statutes federal or state, passed prior to 1861 are lawful de jure statutes. All statutes, state or federal, passed after 1861 are martial law statutes. Two national governments exist, one to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by Congress outside and independently of that instrument. That's the U.S. Supreme Court, Downs versus Bidwell, 1901. In 1871, Congress set up a corporation to operate as government of the District of Columbia, and that's what's operating today, and it's called United States of America. In the Articles of Confederation, Article 1, it says, the style of this confederacy shall be the United States of America. It is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, March 9, 1933, 48 Stat 1, Public Law 89-719, declared by President Roosevelt being bankrupt and insolvent. HJR 192, 73rd Congress in session June 5, 1933, joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause, dissolve the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of all United States governmental officers, and departments, and is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. That's United States Congressional Record, March 17, 1993. It was seized by its creditors. That's the unconstitutional corporation. It's now owned and operated by the Roman cult. On the same day, March 9, 1933, March 9, 1933. On the same day, since March 9, 1933, the United States has been in a state of declared national emergency. Under the powers delegated by these statutes, the President may seize property, organize and control the means of production, seize commodities, assign military forces abroad, institute martial law, seize and control all transportation and communication, regulate the operation of private enterprise, restrict travel, and in a plethora of particular ways, control the lives of all American citizens. A majority of the people of the United States have lived all their lives under emergency rule. For 40 years, freedoms and governmental procedures guaranteed by the Constitution have in varying degrees been brought by laws brought into force by states of national emergency. And that's in Rig U.S. Senate Report number 93-549, dated November 19, 1973. Do a search online. You can pull it up easily. That's what I did. Pentagon Inc., Google, YouTube, Facebook, Amazon, masquerading as private companies. It's all the Pentagon. This court declared in the slaughterhouse cases that the 14th Amendment as well as the 13th Amendment were adopted to protect the Negroes in their freedom. It's all about martial law. 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were designed mainly for the protection of the newly emancipated Negroes. U.S. versus Anthony. Now, don't get me wrong. I think slavery is of anybody, I don't care what your race is an abomination. And I think that the Roman cult, if you watch my videos, I actually prove there's a Roman cult papal bull called Dum Diversus, where the Roman cult went and said to enslave anybody that wasn't Catholic. And that's what it's all about. It's all coming from the Roman cult. The Roman cult is the enemy. Okay, that's really the enemy. That's where it goes. That's the buck stops there. And when Trump went and built a case against them and seized all their gold, woohoo! Go Trump, go! After the adoption of the 14th Amendment, a bill which became the first Civil Rights Act was introduced in the 39th Congress, the major purpose of which was to secure to the recently freed Negroes all the civil rights secured to white men. No other than citizens of the United States were within the provisions of the Act. This is all martial law. The dissenting opinion asserts that the 14th Amendment is a part of the Constitution of the United States. While this same assertion has been made by the United States Supreme Court, that court has never held that the amendment was legally adopted. I cannot believe that any court in full possession of its faculties could honestly hold that the amendment was properly approved and adopted. Everything done after 1861 was under martial law, under necessity. All statutes, constitutions, codes, rules, regulations, amendments for the unconstitutional corporation are for that unconstitutional corporation that was set up in 1871. Two national governments exist, one to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by Congress outside and independently of that instrument. And that's Downs versus Bidwell, U.S. Supreme Court, 1901. Martial law falls under the law of nations. This will work for any country on the planet because it falls under the law of nations. Find any national emergency, including a bankruptcy, and you'll have proof that your country is operating under martial law. Any country on the planet. Martial law extends to property and to persons, whether they are subjects of the enemy or aliens to that government. Subjects or aliens, nobody else. Does not affect we the people. Why would anyone want to be a low-life scumbag U.S. citizen? If a military police officer is talking to you, then you are a subject and you are the enemy. That's really the way you got to look at it. All subjects over which the sovereign power of the state extends are objects of taxation, but those over which it does not extend are exempt from taxation. This proposition may be pronounced as self-evident. It's obvious. The sovereignty of the state extends to everything which exists by its authority or its permission. Last I heard, I wasn't created by government. That's why I rail on them so much. That's why I send out those nasty grams. On the first day of this week. So it was like on Friday, I went through a nasty gram, and I go through what I send. There's court cases to talk about the language of sovereignty. Do you know who you are? The Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the other property belonging to the United States. Actually, it says respecting the territory and other property belonging to the United States. That's Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to put that. Anyways, that is not unique to America. All countries work that way. Canada, the Canadian Ownership, Control, and Determination Act. Owned means subject to the regulations. That is not unique. Two political jurisdictions. Every tree, living things, people, animals, plants, heaven, earth, the universe, lawful and natural, are in God's jurisdiction. Fictional things, persons and corporations, domicile, residence, legal and political, that's Lucifer. The term resident and citizen of the United States is distinguished from a citizen of one of the several states in that the former is a special class of citizen created by Congress. The term citizen in the United States is analogous to the term subject in the common law. Civil rights under the 14th Amendment are for federal citizens and not state citizens. Federal citizens, as parents, have no right to the custody of their infant children except subject to the paramount right of the state. It is evident that they, U.S. citizens, have not the political right which are vested in citizens of the states. They are not constituents of any community in which is vested any sovereign power of government. Their position partakes more of the characters of subjects than of citizens. They are subject to the laws of the United States but have no voice in its management. If they are allowed to make laws, the validity of these laws is derived from the sanction of a government in which they are not represented. Mere citizenship they may have, but the political rights of citizens they cannot enjoy. Martial law affects chiefly the police and the collection of public revenues and taxes, whether imposed by the expelled government or by the invader, and refers mainly to the support and efficiency of the safety of the army, its safety, and the safety of its operations. Now you know why they always want you to be safe. That's what this pandemic is all about. It's about safety. They want you to be safe. You better be safe. And that's why the revenue is under martial law. Taxes, they're thieves. That's why I put in it's all taxes is tied to the military script that's circulated for money. If they can presume you're accepting the military script, then you're not paying anything. You're using their private money system, and that's why you're paying the tax. So that's why that you have to, if you want to have lawful money, it's got to be gold or silver coin. That's why, if you remember, when I said I accept donations, I said I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the fake money, the military script, the IOUs. That's to basically say there's a Supreme Court case from 1873, Carlisle versus United States, that says that anyone not privileged is sovereign. So if you want to take advantage of their privileges, and the privilege with the banknotes is discharging debt with limited liability, it's impossible to pay a debt with a banknote. That's how they get it. This one article in the Libra Code explains everything. They want you to be safe. That's what the pandemic is all about. It's actually biological warfare. All police are military police. There's FBI military police, city military police, state military police, Homeland Security military police, county military police. All police are military police, and if they're talking to you, then you are a subject and you are the enemy. The sooner you decide you figure that out, the better. There's the real domestic terrorists. You are the enemy. You are the enemy. How many people are murdered by police? It happens on a routine basis. We talked it over, and after investigating it ourselves, we decided that we're not guilty. You are the enemy. Beware violent street gangs. A typical gang member, well organized. There's a gang identifier, gang colors, heavily armed. Do not approach gang members. Gang members are aggressive and notoriously violent. The tyrant, who in order to hold his power suppresses every superiority, does away with good men. Gee, that sounds like Obama firing all those generals that believed in the Constitution. Forbids education and light. Gee, that sounds like Obama with his education programs. Controls every movement and citizens. Gee, that sounds like Obama. Keeping them under perpetual servitude. Gee, that sounds like Obama. Wants them to grow accustomed to baseness and cowardice. That sounds like Obama and Biden. All of this sounds like Obama and Biden. Has his spies everywhere to listen to what is said in the meetings. That sounds like the NSA and the National Security Agency listening in on everything. Spies everywhere listening to meetings, spreads dissension and calumny among the citizens and impoverishes them. Calumny is false rumors, and so that sounds like Obama and Biden. Is obliged to make war in order to keep his subjects occupied and impose upon them a permanent need of a chief. And that's Obama and Biden. There was nothing but warfare. Trump ended the wars, and now they're starting up again under Biden. Time to wake up, folks. Government officials wear two hats. They can represent the unconstitutional corporation, or they can represent the lawful de jure government. Because of our own ignorance, and Mark Passio says it's ignorance, we've given them evidence of their slave. They presume we're their slave until we defeat their presumption. And it's warfare, folks. That's exactly what it is warfare. Under the international law of warfare, all party to a cause must appear by nom de guerre, because an alien enemy cannot maintain an action during the war in his own name. So you are an enemy, you're an alien. A mixed war is one which is made on one side by public authority and the other by mere private persons. You're in warfare, folks. It's time to start treating it that way, and the best defense is a good offense. You are the enemy. United States acknowledge and protect hostile countries occupied by them, religion and morality, strictly private property, the persons of the inhabitants, especially those of women, and sacredness of domestic relations. Offenses to the contrary shall be rigorously punished. This rule does not interfere with the right of the victorious invader to tax the people on their property, to levy forced loans, to billet soldiers, or to appropriate property, especially houses, land, boats, ships, or churches, for temporary and military uses. This is Article 37 of the Lieber Code. Juilliard versus Grievance, U.S. Supreme Court. The forced loans of 1862 and 1863 in the form of legal tender notes were vital forces in the struggle for national supremacy. They're talking about U.S. Treasury notes, folks. That's exactly what they're talking about. They issued $400 million. Lincoln issued $400 million in U.S. Treasury notes to pay for the Civil War. Federal Reserve notes are military script. Federal Reserve notes are forced loans. They're forcing the enemy, you, to loan the government money. You are the enemy. Governments descend to the level of a mere private corporation and take on the characteristics of a mere private citizen, where private, corporate, commercial paper and securities is concerned. For purposes of suits, such corporations and individuals are regarded as entities entirely separate from government. That's why they want you to pay that filing fee if you want to file a lawsuit, because you have to submit, you have to tell them that you're not sovereign, that you're a slave. They only have authority over slaves. Federal Reserve notes is military script. All statutes are martial law statutes. All statutes apply to subjects only. The military police often say, you think our laws don't apply to you. Well, the Lieber Code says it all. Do they even teach you to read? The last thing they want to talk about is war crimes. War crimes precipitate revolutions. I have exclusive content available on my website. I have 2 subscription levels, and I accept cryptocurrencies. The basic subscription level is $29.99 a year for the videos only. The advanced subscription is $49.99 a year for videos plus unlimited consultations. That's actually the platinum subscription level. But I'm not a liar. Well, I meant an attorney. No, I meant a liar. But I can tell you what I would do and under certain circumstances and where to find the forms. The only power that these New World Order Satanists have over us is through fraud and deception, and my agenda is to expose it for all our benefit. But I cannot fight all the battles. There's also limits on the consultations. In other words, we can send emails back and forth. That's okay. But any voice communications, or if you want me to review documents for you, then I need an additional donation. So it's just for email communications. Some of my exclusive content is Arlington Private Information Share, land deed training. I've got probably 3 videos on that. Estoppel certificates training, foreclosure estoppel certificates training, corporate denial training, toll notice and demand training, invoice training, notice of void judgment training, revocation of signature training, third-party witness training, and federal habeas corpus training. There's also revocation of voter registration. There's criminal complaint training, which there's actually about 3 videos for that as well, and there'll probably be more. Lawsuit training, other training, depending on requests. If it's something I can do, if it's something that's part of the scope of what my channel is talking about. I've also got Northeast Private Information Share videos. All forms, files, and other instructions are available for free in my 2 private group at freelist.org and Google Groups. The Yahoo group got deleted by Yahoo. All exclusive content will be on my website, and you can buy a subscription there. All empires are built the same way. You get 50% of the poor to go to war with and kill the other 50% of the poor, leaving the rich to chit-chat in the Senate, which gives the impression that there is real democracy. You absorb the lands and riches of your enemies and repeat whenever you need cash or new resources. And that's about it. War is terrorism with a bigger budget. Democracy, fake laws, false arrest, feel free. The term federal personnel means individuals entitled to receive immediate or deferred retirement benefits under any retirement program of the government of the United States, including survivor benefits. That's Title V, United States Code, Section 552 AA 13. So anybody with a Social Security number is federal personnel. If they compel the disclosure of a Social Security number, they're compelling you to work for the occupying power. That's a war crime. Filing fees are a regulation. That's an edict under martial law. Court rules are a regulation. That's an edict under martial law. By turning on their emergency lights, they're terrorizing you. Coercing information from you or a third party is a war crime. When they coerce a date of birth from you, they're compelling you to work for the occupying power, a war crime. When they use their regulations to deny you justice, it's a war crime. Yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity. That's the Roman cult, folks. For when they were driven out of all their former holes, they devised a new method of conveyance by which the lands were granted not to themselves, but to nominal fiefs to the use of the religious houses. That's the Roman cult, folks, thus distinguishing between the possession and the use, and receiving the actual profits while the season of the land remained in the nominal fief, who was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the clergy. That's the Roman cult, folks. So the Roman cult gets to do it, and then they get to decide whether it's right or wrong. How convenient. To be bound in conscience to account to assestic use for the rents and emoluments of the estate. That's taxes, folks. And it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. And that's found in Volume 2 of Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, under the definition of mort main. My blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo.com. My YouTube profile is Sovereign Living. My Facebook community page, I deleted it due to censorship on the part of Facebook. My private group called Sovereignty International is being deleted on Facebook. Actually, I haven't been there in months. I'm not interested in going there. Facebook is a has-been. And there's no Yahoo private group. It's called freelist.org. And there's Administrating-Your-Public-Servants, and there's a Google private group also called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. Follow me on Twitter at EngineerWin. Follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International, and I've got a BitChute channel, although BitChute doesn't let me upload files bigger than 500 megabytes. So I don't have that many files uploaded to BitChute. Terrorism, a system of government that seeks to rule by intimidation. So they're the terrorists. They want to call everybody else terrorists, but they're the terrorists. Can you spot the terrorists? I see a whole bunch of them there. Now, the use of violence and intimidation in the pursuit of political aims. There's a whole bunch of terrorists there. Americans killed in 2015 by cannabis, 0. By Ebola, 1. By snake bites, 2. By ISIS, 3. By playing football, 12. By cow attack, man, 20. Man, cows are attacking people? Holy cow. By bee sting, 100. By police, 1,100. And by big pharma, 100,000. Wow. So big pharmas, so why is that a surprise? They're in the process of, they want to kill off like 100 million or so now. Small penis, lack confidence, bullied at school. Why not join the police? You'll get to use phrases such as, I am the law, respect my authority. Tell it to the judge. Knowledge of the law is not needed and actively discouraged. Training includes practical steps on how to manufacture consent to statutory rules, intimidation techniques, and legalese speak. Below average intelligence and absolute obedience to authority is mandatory. You got that right. So you got to build a case against them. You get the police report, you get copies of any videos, you get any notes. It's amazing what kind of evidence they'll give you against them. All the statutory citations are provided from Catman's material. Catman has done a huge amount of research, and I highly recommend that everybody in Texas should have his book. You want all reports, all videos, all offense reports. You know, when you go and do a public information request, these people are a bunch of brain dead idiots, and so if you don't ask for it, they won't give it to you. So you got to say it. All videos, all offense reports, all incident reports, all narratives, all call logs, all arrest reports, photos, criminal complaints, all bonds and oaths for all of the officers involved. Check out my other videos. There's a Bankster Thieves playlist. There's the Roman Cult playlist. There's the Bankrupt Corporate So-Called Governments. Bar members 1 through 4. Do-it-yourself, how not to volunteer for the selective service in the draft. Martial laws here. Do-it-yourself, no income tax. Do-it-yourself, free mail. Do-it-yourself, kangaroo courts 1 through 19. And this is bar members 1 through 7. Canada Border Pigs playlist, bar members and their Satanic Connections playlist. It's a fundamental right to have a neutral and detached judge presiding over judicial proceedings. Well, there is no such thing as a judicial proceeding. All these judges are bought and paid for whores masquerading as judges. Warning, this is the standing army you were told not to tolerate. Order followers. The servants of evil. You assist an evil system most effectively by obeying its orders and decrees. An evil system never deserves such allegiance. Allegiance to it means partaking of the evil. A good person will resist an evil system with his or her whole soul. Order followers are the ones keep the system of slavery in place. And there's a whole bunch of order followers right there. And that's Mark Passio. Well said, Mark Passio. War is when your government tells you who the enemy is. Revolution's when you figure it out for yourself. When freedom and liberty are at stake, your silence isn't golden, it's yellow. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. These Roman cults, Satanists, are bending over backwards to make you think you have constitutional rights. It's extremely important to them that people do not figure this out, because the last time they were doing war crimes that precipitated a revolution. If you challenge jurisdiction, the so-called judge is required to compel the prosecutor to prove jurisdiction or dismiss the case. If they do anything else, it's a denial of due process, a war crime. That's why you file bar grievances. I'm telling you, we're going to be talking about that next weekend. Bar grievances and judicial complaints. Okay, I'm not sure if we're going to cover judicial complaints next weekend. I suppose we probably could, but certainly bar grievances. Matter of fact, I file bar grievances against judges too, because all judges are bar members, or almost all of them, and they can't be a judge if they're not a bar member in a lot of cases. And so then if they get disbarred, then that's a problem. And I'm hearing that three bar grievances, and it doesn't matter what the bar grievance says, 3 bar grievances, and they get disbarred. They lose their bond is what happens. They lose their bond, which if they lose their bond, they can't, they're done. They can't practice law because they have to have insurance. They're cowards. They're real brave when there are 20 or 30 of them, but when it's just you and them, they're cowards. They sneak around and fabricate evidence that you're the enemy and a subject, their slave, and they will never confront you with without lots of their buddies to back them up. You are the enemy, and the sooner you figure that out, the better. You're a subject and their slave, and the sooner you figure that out, the better. Give me liberty or give me death, when Samuel Adams, after witnessing a man flogged to death for refusing to take a license. They're assaulting people with their Roman cult Satanic trust. In doing this, I shall have occasion, incidentally, to evince how true it is that states and governments were made for man, and at the same time how true it is that his creatures and servants have first deceived, next vilified, and at last oppressed their master and maker. And that's Chisholm versus Georgia, U.S. Supreme Court. A state like a merchant makes a contract, a dishonest state like a dishonest merchant willfully refuses to discharge it. Chisholm versus Georgia. U.S. Supreme Court. Government is not reason, it is not eloquence, it is force. Like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. The communists and the Southern Poverty Law Center are responsible for a lot of these lies. They're persecuting you for your political beliefs. They're taking reprisals against you because you don't want to be their slave. They're pillaging your property. They're not respecting your religious beliefs. They're terrorizing you. They're threatening you. They're coercing information from you and from third parties. And they're engaging in genocide against state citizens. Remember, it's a war crime. It's warfare. You have to treat it like it's warfare, because that is exactly what it is. Don't wait for them to attack you. Attack them first. The number one rule in warfare, the best defense is a good offense. Make an affidavit of corporate denial, serve them with a notice and demand that's designed to take away their presumptions. If you do this effectively, it will put them in a very difficult position. If you do it well, you may be able to get them fired or worse. Make an affidavit of criminal complaint, serve it on authorities. I'm planning on working with Randy Kelton in Texas So hopefully, Randy Kelton works strictly with their statutes and codes, and you have to understand it's all martial law, so it's all statutes and codes, and so you have to you can use common law too, but you can use their statutes and codes, and Randy's really good at using them, and so I'm going to go and give it a shot, see what happens. All statutes, edicts under martial laws, all statutes, all codes, all regulations, constitutions, constitutional amendments, rules, court rules, all fees. If you have any issues with any government, find out who their attorney bar member and file a bar grievance. In any court, they're always dealing with statutes. Therefore, it's not a judge, but they are all bar members. File bar grievances against the so-called judges and file judicial complaints. That's really what it comes down to. If they have a law firm, then file a bar grievance against the prosecutor and the city attorney, and go to the law firm's website and file bar grievances against all the partners. I filed bar grievances against all the partners and third-party debt collectors. When acting to enforce a statute and its subsequent amendments to the present day, a judge in municipal court is acting as an administrative officer and not in a judicial capacity. Courts administrating or enforcing statutes do not act judicially, but merely ministerially, but merely as an extension, as an agent for the involved agency, and only in a ministerial capacity, not in a discretionary capacity. They're bought and paid for clerks. It's the accepted rule, not only in state courts, but the federal courts as well, that when a judge is acting, enforcing administrative law, they're mere extensions of the administrative agency. Anytime they're dealing with a statute, it's martial law, and it's not judicial. Judges who become involved in enforcement of mere statutes, civil or criminal in nature, act as mere clerks of the involved agency. So the guy you go after is the bar member. Go after the bar member. Those are the ones you have to go after. They're the ones that are causing the problems. Ministerial officers are incompetent to receive grants of judicial power from the legislature. Their acts in attempting to exercise such powers are necessarily nullities. When there is no jurisdiction, there is no judge. The proceeding is as nothing. Such has been the law from the days of Marshal Sale. Again, they're bought and paid for whores. There's no such thing as a judge in today's courts. You know, they can act as a judge, but they don't want to. They're bar members. There's these bar member scum. So we'll talk next week about bar grievances, among other things. I would highly recommend that you look into that. We're going to be talking about that next week. So, anyways, that's the end of this one today, or this morning, I should say. We're going to start again this afternoon. Let me look and see if there's any questions anybody has. Does anybody have any questions? I'm looking at the chat right now. I'm not seeing any. If not, we're going to break for lunch and come back at 2 o'clock. There's no Article 3 courts. They're all bought and paid for clerks masquerading as a judge, and you got to treat it that way. And it's warfare. There's no Article 3 courts. They're bought and paid for clerks. How do you get bonds on the creeps? That's a good question. I've actually had some of them send me a certified copy of their oath of office and surety bond, but I haven't. Somehow you got to get that. I've seen where, like in Texas, Tarrant County District Attorney has a bond that's guaranteed by the county. I haven't heard of Alphonse Fagiolo. I currently live in the DFW area. I'm actually grew up in Canada. You will, you can watch the video. It'll be on YouTube. They said it's part of the personal file and not disclosable. Well, I got a district attorney's bond, and I filed bar grievance against that district attorney too. But the bond was like guaranteed by the county, and it was like $5,000. That's all. There's a case in Dallas where a common law jury. It's just common law jury. We the people we decide what we're going to do. It's not up to them, and they don't have anything to say about it. So we convene our own common law juries and grand juries, and put them on trial, and then we can bring it into their court as a foreign judgment. They'll swear up and down, we don't recognize you. Well, if you bring it in as a foreign judgment, then they have to. Canada's a little different. You don't have the Constitution that we have. That's the reason I'm down here. Communist Canada. But there's nothing stopping you from convening your own common law courts. Definitely you can still convene, and common law is still in Canada. There's people that do stuff in Canada. Yeah, I live in the DFW area. I mean, I have a mailbox in Tarrant County, and a lot of times I'm in Tarrant County, but you know. Well, they're all, if you can get that county court at law, I don't know if you can get them. They're kind of hard to approach, but you might be able to get them in Texas. If you can get a decent sheriff, maybe. But a sheriff presiding over trial is still administrative. Yeah, grand juries are secret for sure, and so but the common law juries are public. But they're all there's no judges, there's no courts. They're all kangaroo courts. That's why you go after the bar members. Robert Menard, that sounds familiar. Oh, he's Canadian. He's in Ontario. I've been living in the U.S. for a long time, so I really don't follow. I'm familiar somewhat with that, and I like what they do. So if you're in Ontario, that's certainly some stuff worth looking at. But Ontario is going to be different than Alberta. In my opinion, I think you should go after them in Canada for war crimes. They've acceded to the International Criminal Court, and Canada is clearly under a military occupation. The RCMP is the military force, and so I think in Canada I'd be going after them for war crimes. They're going to start name calling you and calling you Freeman on the land and all this other crap, and so then that's a war crime. That's taking reprisals against you for your political beliefs. That's a war crime. I'd file war crimes complaints against them. Okay, well, I suppose we're about done then. I appreciate everybody participating. I appreciate your questions. We'll be convening again this afternoon at 2 o'clock. See you guys then.